It is Wednesday, November 22nd, 2017. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And we did not get our asses kicked at Jiu-Jitsu today. However, I did follow through on one previous threat/promise, and yesterday I actually completed the full round, the full dosage of both a fundamentals class and then a consecutive Jiu-Jitsu 1 class shortly thereafter, as in like immediately thereafter. And I feel all right for it. I'm a little bit sore. I'm a little bit tense, you know. I mean, because those guys are gorillas, you know. And so, yeah, you know, I did get my ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu. I did kick a little bit of ass. However, it was in the fundamentals class, so I don't know that actually counts anymore. So, you know, I got in my roll time. I do need to be getting in more of it, though. Stepping up to the plate and trying to extend my wind and stuff by going for the second hour of Jiu-Jitsu. It's kind of a, I don't know, kind of just a step forward for me. I really wish that for the Wednesday Jiu-Jitsu 1 class, they had a fundamentals class before it instead of after it. They kind of swap it on that day. But it would be really awesome because then I could do it 5 days a week in that same way. I mean, I think that would be kind of pimp. But, you know, we deal with what we've got. And there is always open mats. They did make a point to indicate, yes, there is open mat 7 days a week, so you can get in and train 7 days a week. Whether or not you actually do, I know a couple guys that do, and they're very, 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 very good. I mean, I don't stand a chance against them. You know, it's like it's one of those things where they tell you, you know, there are blue belts, and then there are blue belts. Okay, yeah, you don't know how long that guy has been a blue belt. Okay, you know, stepping from the blue belt to the purple belt it's a tough one. That's usually the cutoff line. I'm actually a little step beyond the first cutoff line. Okay, I'm in the second cutoff line right now, where I'm a white belt still, but I'm like on the verge of being a blue belt, right? And so it's like but you know, again, there are blue belts and then there are blue belts, okay? And I mean, I would be like in the first category of blue belt, and I have no reservation admitting that. You know, limitation of age, whatever, my own perception about my capability, whatever thing would be putting me in that classification, it would apply at this moment in time. However, I don't expect it to forever. You know, and that's one thing. I was having a conversation with somebody who's just really starting on their jiu-jitsu journey and really starting to embrace it. And it's an exciting period. At least I found it to be an exciting period for me, and it seems to be for her as well. But she was immediately talking about goals and orientation of goals with belts. And I tried to dissuade her from it, but then at first, and then I was like, no, that's a realization that you have to actually come to on your own. You know, I mean, I can tell it to her, but she won't actually appreciate it until she's actually gone through and stepped past that, you know, where I could tell her, hey, you know what, in 6 months from now, you're not even going to care. You're going to be focused on, how do I improve this position? What grip should I be taking for this position? You know, how should I be adapting my movement? Where are my weak points? Where are people continually getting me at? You know, where are my openings? What do I have to close? What do I need to facilitate as an opening? Maybe I'm holding it as an opening, hoping for something, and just not being quick enough at the follow-up and executing it. You know, and what is it that's holding that little hitch that's keeping me from expressing that in its fullness? And I had an opportunity to roll with this person yesterday, and it was a pleasure because she's strong. I mean, and that to me, it makes a difference. For her size, she's very, very strong. However, I didn't have much trouble overpowering her. And so for that, and I've made a point about this before, that, when you're training with somebody who is significantly, how should I say it? You have a significant advantage over, you're in your peak physical condition and they're just clean off the couch, or, something like that, where I've been training a significant period longer than her. So, I even told her that, when I was just walking all over her, she's like, "Oh, I'm dead. Oh, I'm dead again. I'm dead again." And we were just doing pass keep. And I said to her, I'm like, you know what? In 6 months, it's going to be you doing this to me. I'm watching her ascent and taking into account that she's much younger, and she still hasn't really peaked out hormonally or physically from what I can tell. So, she still has musculature to develop and all that shit. And so, I know she's over 18. She's got to be I would say in probably her early 20s. So, there's a lot of hormonal development, a lot of mental development to go to get to where I am. I'm making some of the conceptual stuff go a little bit quicker for myself, only because I've been training for so long in just different stuff. If you're mindful about where you're putting your feet and how you're holding your hands, and you're doing that regularly, just changing the behavior of what position you're holding your hand in, or why you're holding your hands in certain positions, or your feet are in certain positions, that's the only thing that changes. After you've already kind of set the mental pathway to your hand to get it to execute the difference between, say, a closed fist and an open palm, intentionally, then it just becomes a matter of, things like how you're holding your feet, body position, breathing, and the style that you're learning, and whether or not it's on the ground or standing up. It doesn't make any difference, because you've already established the pathways necessary to articulate specific movements with your hands. You see what I'm saying there? And so, I make some conceptual jumps, but I still have trouble on things that I always had trouble with. So I've had some trouble with hip movement and being more articulated with that, and it's only now that it's really starting to come in for me, where it's not as much mental effort to remember to do certain things with my legs or certain things to do with my hips now. And so, again, it's a progression, and I know that for her, though, she's probably actually establishing those neural pathways for the first time in jiu-jitsu. However, from her musculature, I get the impression that's not exactly true. I get the feeling she's probably done some other type of martial art, or some formal dance training. She does have the body of somebody who's done hip hop or modern dance or something like that. So you never know. All I know is I backed off a lot on my strength. I wasn't trying to push my mass as much. Because I'm a habitual pressure player. And I really need to learn to harness it and utilize it a little better. But I'm an excessive pressure player. I'm on you like a wet blanket, and that's just the way I feel comfortable being. It's like I got your leg, I got your arm, I got you around the waist, I got seatbelt grip on you. I got a grip on you. It's like I kind of imagine myself like a cross between a bull and an octopus, where as long as I can maintain some sort of contact on you, I can tell how you're going to move, and then I push towards that. And I classify the pushing as being the bull nature on me, just because I don't have the attack yet, and so my attacks are kind of mindless and unfocused at this time. And I can admit that. It's got to be like completely obvious before I catch on it. And 9 times out of 10, you're catching on to the fact that I've caught on to it before I've actually managed to execute it. It's sad, but it's true. And so now I've been focusing more on just trying to retain guard. That seems a big enough challenge with guys that are my level and higher. There are a few of the guys that have had wrestling training that haven't gotten their second or third stripe on their white belt or whatever yet. That they're a bit of a challenge, but they're not looking for a lot of the hooks that you use in jiu-jitsu. And so yeah, every once in a while I'll catch them on something like that. Anyway, we do play metal on this show, and we have yet to do a first dance, so let's go ahead and get into that. And as far as what to play, I was listening to a little bit of State of Euphoria today, and I really like this album. I was listening to one of the songs on it today, and it really caught me here, because some of the words, even though the definitions behind them would be different, if you just listen to the words and try to apply it to cryptocurrency, it kind of fits. So here we go. Who Cares Wins by Anthrax here on Coin Metal. And that was Wait and Bleed by Slipknot. Yeah, you certainly cannot go wrong with that. And so as far as what we're going to talk about today, I haven't the slightest clue. You know how this rolls. We pick a brick, we start walking, and we find ourselves 3 hours later. That's just how it works. But I do have one that piqued my interest. It was certainly at the top of my Twitter feed. And I have been I've got a bazillion tabs open. I haven't executed. However, I do want to talk about something today, and it had just dawned on me exactly what it was, because I was flipping through my tabs and I was reminded of a subject matter that is near and dear to my heart. For those of you who have listened to the show regularly, I'm sure you are more than familiar with my diatribes concerning internet access. And I think it's because the whole thing of net neutrality has been a subject of concern for quite some time now. And so, it's one of those things, it comes up, where we're being faced with the question of how exactly we want to regulate the internet. Personally, I believe that no one should regulate the internet. That the FCC should just go fuck itself and close its doors and so on and so forth. Because all they've really managed to do is fucker it around to where we have these large international conglomerates. Sorry about that. I got a frog in my throat, and for whatever reason, it can't pick which way it wants to go. Anyway, we have these international conglomerates that get to decide our fate online. And I think that's a reality that a lot of people kind of neglect. They're browsing around and they think it's all hunky-dory, that they're viewing all that there is to the internet, and that's not the truth. And I think that's really a shame. It's like it started with this whole concern about child porn and people giving one another free commercial software and commercial works for free online, and it's morphed into a condition now where we have these huge multinational conglomerates. They own all of the bandwidth capacity and whatnot, And people are now bitching because the American government, or United States government anyway, they're preparing to possibly deregulate these huge conglomerates. And it's not surprising because right now I guess there's some big antitrust thing going on with AT&T. They're in some sort of lawsuit because they're wanting to merge with AOL Time Warner, which at one time was 3 different companies but became one. And so now they want to take it one level abstraction down to where it's all just AT&T, you know. And of course they don't tell you the fact that, you know, AT&T's already bought up, I think it's Dish Network, and there was another one of those cables or satellite providers that the AT&T bought up. They've been buying up like everything, right? And I think this is a necessary thing. I think it has to get this way. And I know that's kind of a different perspective than a lot of people think that I would say. But hear me out. See, at the position AT&T is in, they really don't have to listen to anybody because they have so many different revenue streams. They can piss off all but like 10-15% of their customer base in any one of those markets and stay dominant because they've already got the lobbyists. They've already got the machinations all hammered down to where you cannot come in and compete with them. At least not on the playing field that has been set forth with the internet as it currently exists. Now, should that change, should there be another type of internet topology instituted by the people at large or some other commercial interest, at that point they'll be challenged. But we're not going to ever get to that point as long as things are the way they are. You know, and see, you have to keep in mind when considering this, you have to keep in mind the type of market conditions, the level of abuse in our financial markets that we allowed to occur before the 2008 financial crisis and before the creation of Bitcoin. And I would really hope that we would not get to that level with regard to the abuse that we suffer from AT&T. And I just say AT&T because they're going to be the internet soon enough. They've got enough money. They can outlast presidents. They can tie up the court system as long as they need to keep things the way they want them to be. They can afford that. However, what they can't afford is us creating our own networks that don't follow the same rules that the ISP setups do. You know, and that's really where Bitcoin really shines, because if you take a look at the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper and you read it very closely and you do any kind of study with regard to regulation of finance, you understand very quickly that the reason why we do everything we do, or the reason that Satoshi proposed that we do everything according to the white paper, was because that framework negated the ability of all of the existing federal governments to regulate it. There were no attach points, you know, because say like the miners, right? The miners don't hold on to your money. The miners don't create money. But they perform work and they are rewarded for money. Or they're rewarded with money in the form of Bitcoin for their work. You see how that goes? That's different than what is being proposed to us with this segregated witness business, because that goes off chain. And see, when it goes off chain, all of a sudden now you've created a custodial situation. because it's not happening on this non-custodial network. It's happening off of it, which means all of the trust mechanisms that are tied in to the way that Bitcoin operates are now no longer protecting those monetary funds. And if they are not in your hands, that means they are in the hands of another private individual somewhere. And when I say private individual, I'm talking also about entities, such as corporations, businesses, banks. Get the picture? If you do not have the keys, somebody else does. You know, I mean, when you get into your car, do you hand the keys off to somebody that you were intending to ride along inside in your car? No. You don't just like throw the keys on the driver's seat, sit in the passenger seat, put your seatbelt on, and open the driver's side door, wait for somebody else to get into it. Why not? You can't trust that they are going to take you where you want to go. That is why. You didn't come into Bitcoin so that you can hand your keys off to somebody else and let them drive around your monetary value, take you for a ride. If you did get into Bitcoin thinking that that's the way this thing operates, I could be apologetic about it, but I'm not going to be. Sorry, you lost your money. That's all there is to it. And so I did want to kind of touch on net neutrality a little bit. See, I think that the problem is, and we're at the same exact decision in Bitcoin. It's not as immediate in Bitcoin, and the decision is a little more pressing as far as the weight of it. What exactly is at stake with it. Okay? And there was a period of time where pretty much anybody who wanted to, who dedicated the electricity and the hardware to it, could do some sort of internet hosting. But that's not the case anymore. Okay, they all got bought up by AT&T, and now AT&T is the service provider, or is working on becoming the service provider. And that is because we were not vocal enough at the time that the technology was first presented about maintaining our stake in it. And that's why we are where we are. It's the same thing with cars. There are various regulations that keep you from putting out your own car, or fueling your car on whatever means you would like to fuel it on. If you wanted to fuel it on hydrogen or some shit like that, there are various regulations that impede you from doing that. So we're kind of stuck on this whole oil tit thing by virtue of the monopoly position created by our energy policies. And this is the points where, the people that want to deregulate and anarchists and libertarians really do have their place. Have very, very compelling and very legitimate arguments for why their way is a better way. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency projects, they are perfect exemplars of what can happen without government. It's like all of the hacks that happen, we know about that shit within days. Some of us know them while they're happening, and then communicate to other people that aren't as connected, and within days we know about severe big level hacks. Okay, there are still people out there who have no idea all of their information was fucking hacked in the Edgar hack. They're completely oblivious to the fact that all their information was hacked on the Equifax hack. That 1 out of 3 Americans had their fucking records hacked. They're blissfully unaware of that shit. But they are unaware of those things not because it's not important to them, pardon me, but because there are regulatory kind of shields that corporations that can afford to can operate behind, like the Edgar hack. The Equifax hack, and the Edgar hack too, if you really want to get down to it. Those hacks happened in excess of a month prior to any public disclosure about it. That means even if you were paying attention, you didn't know, unless you were watching like the SEC specifically or something like that. You didn't know about it because the companies involved were not required, according to the regulations, to be as fastidious and how should I say it, forthcoming in all of the little hacks that happen, or big hacks rather. Not to the public anyway. They report immediately to the federal government. Like with regard to the Edgar hack, they knew when that shit happened. It went on for like a year with them knowing it happened. But the point I'm getting at is these are all regulated markets. They have these protections in them so that, well, let's just look back at the Equifax hack. There were traders that knew about that hack before the general public knew, and they acted upon that knowledge. They traded with that knowledge in mind. That was circulated from one mouth to another ear via rumor, whatever. People were on it. People were in on it. People knew it was happening. But the general public didn't. The average Joe trader that didn't have that level of access had no idea. So they got wrecked. Because for every winner, there's a loser. And you know, big fucking what? What are you going to do? But that shit doesn't happen in crypto. Not as easily as it happens in regulated markets. And why? Because the people that are involved in it are actual participants in it. They don't have 8 layers of federal bureaucracy between them and you. You are it. You know, if there's some major issue with Verge and you're holding Verge, you know about it. If there's a major issue with Bitcoin and you regularly transact in Bitcoin, you fucking know about it. You don't need the SEC to tell you. You don't need the FEC to tell you, or the FCC to tell you, or the NSA, or CIA, or the BATF. You don't need them to tell you there's some sort of issue going on with the Bitcoin network or any other currency network or currency service that you're using here in crypto. And why? Because, again, they do not have 8 layers of Big Brother between you and them to at least take up part of the fucking heat. And so when something goes wrong, like Bittrex, I'll give you a good example, Bittrex. They had some issue where, and I don't even think it was their issue. Honestly, I'm pretty sure it was Google Authenticator decided to change their key format or some shit like that and fucked everybody's keys up. And so they had to go back to fucking Bittrex. They had to reset everything, reestablish who they were, all that other bullshit. I know because I was one of those people. But see, I knew that immediately. Because why? Because I sign into my fucking Bittrex account twice daily. And so, you know, when the Google Authenticator doesn't work, I immediately think, oh shit, something's fucking wrong, and I start looking at Bittrex support. Which, by the way, they have to be, like, clearer in the way that they do things. Because it would solve It would solve so much shit. I mean, they do make a point to tell you not to make repeated support tickets. Okay, they do. But it's like people can't listen. And I keep seeing people bitch about Bittrex. But the fact of the matter is out of all of the exchange accounts I've had, Bittrex has been by far the easiest to deal with, the most responsive when it comes to issues that I've had with them, and have been the quickest to resolve them. But you have to follow the fucking instructions. You know that little line in the support ticket email that you get that says reply via this email or reply to this email? If you do that, it will go straight to them. You know, it'll be it will be in direct association with the support ticket that you've opened. This will save you and Bittrex hours, days, weeks, months worth of fucking agony if you just follow that one simple fucking thing. I mean, I only know this because I have been that guy. I have been that guy that has been up Bittrex's ass for a fucking week going, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Well, let's see, you only opened 5 support tickets for this fucking issue, and we're still trying to figure out which one is live. And so, yeah, we're having a little bit of difficulty helping you out, dude. You know, and so, you know, don't accumulate the shame and try and foist it off on Bittrex. It's not Bittrex's fault that you have a PEBCAC. And if you don't know what a PEBCAC is, look it up in Google. That's what it's fucking there for. Anyway, I'm going to actually read this article because it started this whole fucking sojourn here. and so now I'm jacked up. I can deliver it properly. And so this one is on RT.com. By the people, for the people. Kim.com to launch alternative internet. And this one was, I guess it was written by Kim.com. Kim.com wanted to end the U.S. for alleged widespread illegal file sharing has vowed to build an alternative internet to combat privacy and freedom problems online. The knowledge that government agencies have used the internet to spy on citizens, along with high-profile hacking scandals, has brought online privacy to the forefront of people's minds. I know it certainly has for me. Mega Upload founder Kim.com says he will help facilitate an unobstructed internet free from prying eyes through MegaNet, which will operate without IP addresses. The German entrepreneur is currently resisting extradition to the U.S. from New Zealand over alleged copyright infringement. .com, who believes the internet to be a new frontier of rough and tumble lawlessness like the Wild West, previously described his alternative internet idea as, quote, indestructible, uncontrollable, and encrypted. Let's see. The current corporate internet will be replaced by a better internet, running on the idle capacity of hundreds of millions of mobile devices, .com said, run by the people, for the people. Breaking net neutrality will only accelerate the adoption of a new network. The development will ensure internet freedom will become a reality, he added, quote, I've been working on this for a long time. Mobile networks and devices will be ready for this in 4 to 5 years. No, Kim, it's going to happen sooner than that. It comes as the U.S. Federal Communications Commission plans to kill net neutrality next month. In 2015, the same agency adopted a, quote, an open internet order, which it said prohibited companies from restricted legal internet use or carrying out paid prioritization for certain services. The new position has been pitched as a bid to restore internet freedom, but critics argued that any rollback will allow internet service providers much greater control over what people can and cannot see online. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai believes repealing net neutrality will facilitate greater investment and innovation. Yeah, right. Innovation in getting you the fuck off our backs and out of our fucking email. That's the fucking innovation that's going to come, buddy. Anyway, continuing on. The burdensome regulation has failed consumers and businesses alike, Pai said in a Wall Street Journal opinion article. In the 2 years after the FCC's decision, broadband network investment dropped more than 5.6%. The first time a decline has happened outside of a recession. If the current rules are left in place, millions of Americans who are on the wrong side of the digital divide will have to wait years to get more broadband. Meanwhile, WikiLeaks publisher Julian Assange has sought to persuade the Trump administration to maintain some form of neutrality by informing the U.S. president that his opponents, quote, control most internet companies. Without net neutrality, they can make your tweets load slowly, CNN load fast, and infest everyone's phones with their ads. Careful, he tweeted to Donald Trump. Yeah, that's a legitimate concern, but you know what? If internet access becomes that big a pain in the ass, do you want to know what I'm going to do? I'm going to walk next door on either side of my house, and I'm going to talk with my neighbors, and I'm going to say, hey, how would you like to set up a line-of-sight communications network between our homes? And then I would go to the people that are their next-door neighbors and ask them the same question. And keep going until I've covered the entirety of the street. I guarantee I would have at least 5 nodes on my street alone. Now, if I can expand that to go into town and talk to some of the people in town and get them to do the same thing, we can expand it again. And by then, you'd be getting like email addresses of people and just emailing them and helping them get on board. But that's the way. You know, just simply have to take the responsibility of hosting the internet away from those who have abused their position as hosts, and open up the possibility for even more people, such as you and me, to be hosts ourselves. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music, and again, you know, I need to get more Slayer. I haven't got Repentless, and I was at a decision point a little while ago as to whether or not I wanted Dystopia or Repentless. And I did pick Dystopia, and honestly, I cannot say I regret that purchase. It has more than renewed my faith in Megadeth. They kind of strayed there during like Euthanasia a little bit, and a little too off. And then the one that they did after that, I think I bought it, but I was very, very disappointed because they'd gone the full Metallica route as far as their soft side being exposed. And so I guess Dave kind of figured it out that most people really didn't like Megadeth for that stuff. I mean, it sounded good, it was well produced, but it wasn't Megadeth. And so, but I will say that since then they have changed their ways, and I really feel Dystopia is it's certainly what I would expect from Megadeth, or at least I would have expected if they had just continued on the same path they were on. But unfortunately, we don't have Repentless because we did buy Dystopia, and I don't play it if I don't have a copy of it. It's it's part of my personal thing. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down some Slayer, a little war ensemble here on Coin Metal. And that was Slipknot with The Shape. My apologies on that. I had taken a moment to step out and came back with it one song ahead of where I had intended on being. Oh well, these things happen. And so, I was looking on, and where the hell did that fucking article go? Alright. I did find another thing that kind of stuck with me today, and this one is it's something of choice, and we've been talking a little bit about that today, and that's always a underlying theme with pretty much everything we talk about here on the show. And this one is on BitcoinMagazine.com. It was written approximately 10:56 a.m. at November 17th, 2017. And this was by Chris Zhu. No indication otherwise, so I'm going to say yes. Penis. Dispelling the doomsayers. The future of China's blockchain development is still bright. Yeah. 3 months have passed since the People's Bank of China issued an official statement explicitly defining initial coin offerings as illegal public financing activities. As a result, all China-based ICO projects were required to refund all initial investments, regardless of whether or not project-based tokens were issued. And more importantly, all China-based Bitcoin exchanges, including Huobi, OKCoin, and BTCC, shut down. The reason given for shutting down: pressure from related government departments. Pessimists believe this would herald the end of Bitcoin in China and even around the world. A settlement that has been enhanced by the astonishing plummet of Bitcoin price on Chinese exchanges from around $7,400 to as low as $2,400. Wow, when did that happen? And as usual, whenever rumors float out of China, markets react, whether those rumors are based entirely, partially, or not at all in truth. As Bitcoin exchanges in China shut down, public trading volumes of Chinese yuan became literally zero. Therefore, any news from China related to Bitcoin should be irrelevant to the price. Bitcoin's ferocious bounce back to nearly $8,000 in mid-November of 2017, an all-time high, confirmed the point that no matter what is going on in China, and regardless of Chinese hurdles, the price of Bitcoin will continue its ascent. But there is an exception. Mining. Will mining be shut down? China is still the largest host country for mining facilities. Indeed, 70% of hashing power globally comes from Chinese mining pools. The miners produced by Chinese company Bitmain dominate the whole industry. People worry about whether the Chinese government will ban mining, thereby eliminating Bitcoin from China at its source and throwing the ecosystem into disarray. However, this is highly unlikely. The recent rumor that a mining ban has become a reality was derived from a flyer distributed by a power station in the Chinese province of Sichuan. The flyer stated, quote, "Bitcoin is illegal, thus the company shall not provide electricity to mining facilities." In fact, this flyer is nothing more than a poorly worded company-level notice that mistakenly used the word, quote, "illegal." The content, however, has since been misconstrued as proof of an official ban on Bitcoin mining. And I don't think I ever stated that on this show. Anyway, continuing. The financial desk of Cacophony, a reputable Chinese news source, and several citizen-based media sources have interviewed the power company in question. These sources have since confirmed that this interpretation is nothing more than overhyped, quote, fake news. The notice was meant for internal use only. Its chief aim was to warn its affiliates about the risks associated with providing illegal electricity. The power station and its affiliates can generate electricity but have not secured the requisite approval from the government to sell electricity to anyone, not just miners. It is important to reiterate that China has never denounced Bitcoin as illegal. Bitcoin itself in China is regarded as a type of good. Quote, people have the freedom to participate in Bitcoin trading as type of goods on the internet, a PBOS notice stated in 2013. Therefore, the government has no reason to shut down the, quote, factories producing normal, quote, goods. While it is true that there are reports circulating that mining facilities are facing pressure of possible suspension, the reason for this pressure is related to their illegal use of electricity, not mining activities. More convincingly, Cacophony reported on October 13th that, quote, a person close to the regulators said to Cacophony that China has no plan to ban mining. Lastly, there is a good chance that China could decide to create its own regulated Bitcoin trading market. If those plans become a reality, China is even less likely to ban mining. There are two reasons why this theory may be valid. Firstly, China is highly motivated to enter the trading market. Japan has licensed several cryptocurrency exchanges, and the CME is stepping up efforts to list Bitcoin futures to build a more regulated trading market. China, as the second largest economy, has good reason to want to build its own regulated market too. The logic is, as Bitcoin trading can't simply be banned by any single government due to its decentralized nature, banning it will only result in uncontrollable OTC trading that might result in more hidden capital flight. This is the last thing that the Chinese government will want to see. Therefore, both external pressure and Bitcoin's internal features will drive China to think about a better mode of regulation. Second, Cacophony also hinted that a more regulated Bitcoin market in China might be possible in its article titled, quote, will Bitcoin come back to China after China becomes less relevant to Bitcoin? The article ends with, quote, maybe someday when regulators find a better way to regulate Bitcoin, we can't preclude the possibility that Bitcoin will come back to China. Cacophony holds a special status among all media sources for the Chinese Bitcoin industry. It has long been the primary source for regulation and policy signals from the PBOC. It has literally become the mouthpiece for the PBOC in regard to regulating Bitcoin. The fact that this sentiment was allowed to be published under such tightly controlled circumstances makes it particularly interesting and relevant. Blockchain development still going strong. The reputation of blockchain technology, which underlies Bitcoin itself, has been stained by the speculation side of Bitcoin and all coins to some extent. But luckily, the development of blockchain technology is still an important directive and priority for China. According to China's Premier Li Keqiang, I guess, last year, in the government's 13th five-year plan for social and economic development, quote, blockchain technology has been listed as an important area of development for Chinese endeavors. As long as this remains the case in China, we can expect to see overall favorable conditions for accelerated growth in the industry. Chinese blockchain startups are beginning to expand their communities overseas, and Chinese exchanges have launched international sites. Investors, though less than before and less openly, are still committing to blockchain-based enterprises. Consortium blockchain solutions are being welcomed by big companies. In short, there is more rationality and less speculation. In fact, the so-called ICO ban is actually just an announcement rather than a specific law. There is a very subtle balance between the industry and the regulators. The industry is testing governmental and regulatory boundaries as it reaches towards more autonomy. The government, for its part, is observing whether the industry really will live up to its revolutionary promises and is deciding on the best way to encourage innovation while also avoiding speculation risks. The blockchain industry needs to win regulators' trust by actually solving commercial pain points to prove that token-oriented models are feasible. If no project can prove this and tokens still remain a tool of pure speculation, the industry simply can't expect looser policies. It is up to the crypto and blockchain community to live up to its promises and deliver the innovation that the modern world needs and expects. Wow. Very happy to see that somebody else is reflecting that same sentiment that, we got to deliver. You can promise the sun to everybody, but if you can't fucking deliver, your shit isn't worth anything. And it's like regulation. That's my biggest. How should I say it? My biggest objection to regulation is that it has yet to actually achieve what it sets out to achieve. As far as I can tell, what really happens with regulation is we end up with a structure by which corporate entities can develop themselves to where they're negating the possibility of incurring any competition. And I don't really see that that's a really healthy use of regulation. I think the thing that regulation should do is protect the consumers, keep people playing according to a common and fair playing field. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case with regard to U.S. regulation. I mean, we see examples of blatant conflicts of interest and commingling between regulators and business entities. Where an entity somebody will leave a particular government post, whether they were elected or whether they were put in place or hired by a governor or a mayor or somebody else. And they will kind of go through this revolving door. And as a matter of fact, that is the metaphor that's used to describe this process, a revolving door where, you come in and you're maybe an assistant on somebody's staff for a while. You move up the ladder to where you're in somebody's special group, or you're hired on at a federal monitoring or regulatory board or some shit like that. And then you're there for a while, and then you decide to go into, say, politics, not politics. You go into finance, right? You get hired by Goldman Sachs or one of these other big monster cats or monster whales or whatever the fuck you want to call them. And you work there for a couple of years, and you figure out the regulatory resistance that's most troublesome to your company. And then you go back into politics and you become a lobbyist at first, or maybe go for actual elected politics, elected position, right? And then you're there for a little while, and while you're there, you argue on behalf of your former employer, right? And then after that, then you go back to your former employer for a little bit and maybe retire really, 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 really fucking wealthy. And such, I think, will be the case for this guy if he doesn't end up getting himself shot sometime in the near future or sometime in the future. Because he's played both sides of this. And as a matter of fact, he was one of the primary architects of what's been used as kind of the standard for concern with regard to cryptocurrency regulation. And so here it is. This one's on CoinDesk, and it was written by Nikhilesh D. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I do know that, yes, he does have a penis. BitLicense architect Ben Lawsky joins Ripple board. Ben Lawsky, the former New York superintendent of financial services who spearheaded the BitLicense regulatory framework while in office, has joined startup Ripple's board of directors. According to a press release from Tuesday, Lawsky will help Ripple advance its payment platform as well as its in-house digital asset XRP. Quote, "The company and its leadership are passionate about making our global financial system more efficient, more secure, and more fair," he said in a statement. Lawsky is perhaps best known for establishing the BitLicense framework, the notable and at times controversial regulatory scheme that took shape in 2013 and 14 and came into effect the following year. Since then, only a few licenses, and we're actually going to click on that, have actually been awarded, and a still active legal effort aiming at undoing the BitLicense remains ongoing, and we're definitely going to click on that one too. And although a new counseling firm created in 2015, never mind, block it. Sorry, I was getting no script shit. Block it. Block. No, I don't want your additional script sneaking into me. Sorry about that. It's getting all kinds of no script notifications because apparently CoinDesk wanted to infect me with some shit. So, anyway, continuing on. Let's see. Lawsky came into effect the following year. Since then, only a few licenses of action with blah, blah, blah. And though a new consulting firm created in 2015 raised the prospects of Lawsky advising the industry once he once sought to regulate, the former NYDFS chief has largely stayed on the sidelines. Bullshit. In a departure, however, Lawsky last month spoke about possible regulations for initial coin offerings at the Money 2020 conference in Las Vegas, saying the potential for fraud could cause, quote, a backlash against the entire Bitcoin and crypto ecosystem. And you know what, dude? Fuck you. Fuck you and your bullshit. I mean, I'm disgusted by this dude. I'll just say it now. It won't be me that wastes a bullet on him, but I can't guarantee that one of the other 7 billion people on planet Earth might not find that exchange good. I mean, because, like, really, first, he completely fucks everybody in New York with this BitLicense bullshit. And they've hardly been issued any fucking licenses there, as I predicted. There was a massive fucking exodus out of New York of companies, and there were a wide variety of companies that actually wanted to do business with them until that bullshit. And we've seen this over and over and over again. And one of these fucking days, these regulators are going to understand, if you want to keep crypto and the future of the fucking world economy happening in your state, leave it the fuck alone. Do not enact any regulatory bullshit. if people are not paying taxes on what they are making in crypto, you are not doing your fucking job right. Or more importantly, you're doing a job that they don't want you to do. Because if you were doing a job that they wanted you to fucking do, they would fucking pay for it. Continuing on, this one's on CoinDesk. Bitcoin startups stuck in limbo as BitLicense process drags on. And I'm almost positive I probably read this on this show. But we're going to revisit it anyway because we're still going through this part. And the internet went through this. And the reason we are back to net neutrality is because we did not act properly the last time we had this, we were in this position. The last time we were in this position, we should have been trying to invest in establishing more internet infrastructure rather than, buying AT&T stock and making the money on that. You should have been investing in servers and hosting some fucking sites and some content and shit. Anyway, spilled milk. Continuing on. This one is by Pete Rizzo. It was authored on March 16th of 2016. Just giving you an idea of how long this issue has been going on. And I bet you anything, if I were to look this up on Google, there's probably a more recent story indicating that this has not changed. Anyway, continuing. Finalizing in June of 2015, New York's BitLicense regulation was heralded as a potential boon for an industry then struggling to shake its stigma as the unregulated Wild West of the financial industry, one we still have. More than 6 years after the deadline for application filings, however, the New York State Department of Financial Services has yet to emerge as a regular newsmaker in the industry. The NYDFS has only issued one BitLicense under the regulatory framework which it provided to Bitcoin Services Circle in September of 2015. According to figures provided by CoinDesk provided to CoinDesk by the NYDFS, this means that as many as 21 industry startups are now operating under the BitLicense's safe harbor provision, but waiting for a formal confirmation that they are licensed Bitcoin services providers in New York. Even some of the industry's more well-funded applicants, such as the Bitcoin exchange Coinbase and Bitcoin storage specialist Zappo, indicated that their applications are still being processed. In conversations with CoinDesk, applicants reported varying degrees of interaction with NYDFS officials, with some indicating that they have not been provided with much clarity as to the status of their application, and others lauding the regulator for its efforts to help them ensure that they have provided the requisite details for approval. A spokesperson for the NYDFS indicated that the department is potentially close to awarding new licenses, but that the relatively new nature of the technology is a factor in why more applications have yet to be approved. NYDFS Executive Deputy of Communications Richard LeConte told CoinDesk, quote, "Applicants vary very, very widely in terms of the type of applicants and the information provided. We're working with many applicants rather than outright rejecting them to provide information we need." You don't need any. LeConte contrasted this developing process with other licensed sectors, which have established pipelines and a steady stream of applicants. He suggested the high initial number of applications has created a backlog that he believes will lessen over time. Yeah, because everybody fucking left New York. Startups involved in the application process also offered similar remarks, indicating that both sides see eye to eye on many current issues. Quote, The bit license is really the first of its kind, so it's hard to compare this process to that of any other, Sheffield Clark, managing partner at Bitcoin ATM network CoinSource, said. Application process. Among the companies that publicly indicated that they had applied for licenses, most were complimentary when discussing the application process. Nedge Cordrick, CEO of digital currency exchange Bitstamp, reported an initial period of silence, but said communication has not been a problem. Elsewhere, Patrick Menas, the Chief Compliance Officer at Bitcoin exchange Montego, reported that while sometimes stressful for all involved, the process is moving forward professionally and with respect on both sides. They could require anything that every user has to have a blood test. It could be crazy, but they understand that's not their job, Menes said. It's to help provide a safe and efficient marketplace, and it comes through in the way they're dealing with companies. For example, Manassi said the NYDFS has allowed Montego to send portions of the application process as they are completed. A development, he said, helps make the process more accommodating to a startup environment. Still, applicants wishing to remain anonymous suggested there is some confusion over the state of the filing process and described the process of providing additional information as a hassle for their teams. In January, Kraken founder Jesse Powell said the cost of a bit license wasn't yet worth the benefits of doing business in New York. When Powell's company acquired New York City-based CoinSetter for an undisclosed amount, he said the company's pending bit license would not transfer, and he had no intention of reapplying. Some commentators suggested they believe that the lack of approvals is the result of a string of departures from the NYDFS to the private sector. LeConte, however, dismissed that criticism, stating that he doesn't believe this has slowed down an application process due to the fact that delays in any new process are unavoidable. Yeah, whatever, they're getting bought out. Quote, the team that is in place to handle the applications is the same team, and by and large, he added, I don't think that it slowed down the application process. Importance of safe harbor. Others sought to portray wait times for license in New York as evidence that the policies the bit licenses enacted are working as designed. Yeah, they're keeping everybody out. Former Deputy General Counsel for the NYDFS, Dana Syracuse, now counsel at Buckley Sandler LLP, for instance, said that the process so far does not differ from traditional money service provider businesses, MSB licenses. Yeah, it does. Syracuse said that any perceived delays are likely the result of the back and forth that can be necessary to ensure applicants have provided the NYDFS with all information necessary for the agency to complete and evaluate the submission further. He suggested any delays have been offset by the inclusion of a safe harbor that allows applicants to operate while they await approval. Quote, to me, the important part of this story is the fact that the bit license contains a safe harbor that said as long as you were in by a set date, you were able to continue operations and that there was ample warning to pull out of New York, he said, adding, I think other state regimes need to have similar language because the licensing process is something that takes time. Fuck you! Go suck a dick. No. You did your bullshit market containment bullshit in fucking New York, and now look at them. I can almost guarantee I can look it up, and there's an article written within the last couple months saying something to the effect of NYDFS still dragging ass on bit licenses. Almost guarantee it. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to take the opportunity to dig around a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to throw down some more music in the meantime. And let's see, we haven't played any Sepultura. And you know, I played Arise to death, so I've got to do it for Roots. And as far as which one to play, let's go with shit. I guess Endangered Species. It sounds good. If that doesn't work out, we can always step it back. Anyway, let's go for it. And that was Meshuggah with Marrow. Sorry about that. Kind of let it play out a little bit too long. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. For those of you who have been paying attention to the show, I think this would be a fitting subject to probably run this to the end on, unless, of course, I have something else. I wanted to just check and verify that we didn't have more on that last subject. And I clearly have some sort of script running in the fucking background, sucking up all my RAM. Oh, wow. Apparently this wasn't over. And so let's go ahead and hit this article before we go any further onto anything else. And this one was on Coindesk.com originally. And it was by Michael Castillo, authored on October 11th, 2017. And I'm amazed that I didn't read this, because it looks pretty fresh as far as an article's title is concerned. And here it is. Still alive. NY judge delays decision in fight against BitLicense. And we are going to read this one, like I said, because it is a bit more current. This is October 11th, 2017 was when this was authored. So here we go. Quote, is he paying you in Bitcoins? The question directly directed by a court security guard to the legal counsel of New York resident Theo Chino yesterday highlights a central issue long facing regulators considering the technology. Is Bitcoin a currency or commodity? As the industry has found out time and time again, that just depends. But that answer isn't quite good enough in New York, where early rules were put in place for startups on the basis that money transmission laws applied. While most businesses have resigned themselves to the rules, getting practices in shape or else shipping out, Chino hasn't given up the fight. 2 years after initially filing court documents, Chino's lawyer argued in court yesterday that the so-called BitLicense regulations brought an early end to his client's career as a Bitcoin entrepreneur, as many others have claimed. On one side, Chino's legal counsel argued that the New York State Department of Financial Services overstepped its mandate when it issued the BitLicense. On the other hand, the defendant's lawyers argued that Chino had no grounds for his complaint. I don't know, is he doing business in New York right now? That would be grounds for his complaint. Anyway, continuing. But rather than dismissing the underdog claim, Judge Carmen Victoria St. George issued what may be one of the most surprising statements in Bitcoin's short legal history. She concluded, "Court reserves decision." Pfft. What? Fuck you. Instead of formally weighing in on the case, Judge St. George set a future court date for the participants to reconvene on January 11th, 2018. But while that could seem like a irritating bureaucratic measure, Chino was all smiles at the day's conclusion. Not only does this mean his case gets to live on another day, but the judge seemed at times swayed by his lawyer's arguments. The plaintiff. For Chino and his legal counsel, the indecision can be seen as a small victory, one that will move their case ahead in court and hopefully provide relief for smaller businesses they argue have been hurt by the law. Stepping back, the thrust of Chino's argument is and has been that as a, quote, small business owner, he did not have the resources to go through the notoriously expensive application process for the bit license. Not only does the application cost $5,000, but it also has resulted in applicants spending millions on legal fees. So, back in 2015, Chino filed a complaint against NYDFS and ceased work on his business. From the moment the license was promulgated, Chino's counsel, Pierre Cyric, argued in court, quote, he knew the cost of compliance was prohibitive. And there's evidence to back up the claim. To date, just a handful of bit licenses have been granted, and more companies remain stuck in application status. Still, it was perhaps Chino's critiques based on Bitcoin's legal classification that had the most impact. When asked by the judge if Bitcoin was in fact a financial instrument, Cyric responded no, absolutely not. Indeed, he argued cryptocurrency was a commodity more closely aligned with the definition put forth in 2015 by the U.S. Commodities Futures and Trading Commission. And Judge St. George seemed open to the argument. The defense. On the other side, however, Jonathan Conley, who represented NYDFS, spent much of his time sidestepping this larger intellectual question. Rather than addressing Bitcoin's open-ended legal definition, Conley argued instead that Chino had no right to proceed with his claim due to the fact that he botched his BitLicense application, among other claims. According to Conley, Chino filed his forms with multiple fields stating not applicable and I will not disclose before stopping the process altogether. Because of this, Conley argued damages were only, quote, speculative. In this way, he remarks, cut to the core of what could be another issue in the case, whether Chino is a suitable candidate to back his claims. But for now, that determination will be delayed. Come January, it remains to be seen just how the judge will rule, and if more surprises are in store for what is perhaps the industry's most unlikely legal case. Well, personally, I think the dilly-dallying is indication that they're hoping he'll get hit by a vehicle somewhere between now and 2018. Because I don't see this going in his favor. I mean, only because the defense's argument, it's not really all that compelling, honestly, especially if the plaintiff actually has records of his business previous to his attempted application for BitLicense. You know, if Chino can say, you know what, we did, in 2012 we did, you know, X amount of dollars. In, 2014 we did this, in 2015 we did this, and then in 2015 we stopped all business, right? If he were able to do that, he would be able to say, hey, look, this is an actual material loss for me. I can't hope to live up to these regulatory requirements as they were intended specifically to kick somebody like me out of crypto in New York. There were no regulatory burdens beforehand. I executed no fraud during the time that I was in business, assuming this is the case, Mr. Chino. And so on what basis does the NYDFS claim that I should be required to apply for one of these licenses, when in fact it does nothing to protect my customers. And I would go even further and say, hey, does JP Morgan Chase do business in this town? Because currently they're suppressing news to American regulators that Swiss regulators had a case against them. Or at least they're refusing to disclose this. And this is a global company, global bank. They're all over the fucking place. And they are regulated to no end. And yet, here they are. They were caught money laundering by the Swiss. They were taken to court over it. But we didn't know about that over here in the U.S. People just kept feeding them money. And that, if the fucking bit license was, and I would say the financial regulatory framework that we have in the U.S., if it were actually intended to serve the customers, we would have known when that shit happened. And we would have been acting with our minds in how we decided to invest going forward. We'd be saying to ourselves, well, shit, they can't keep themselves from frauding the Swiss? The Swiss are like, they're world renowned for their inscrutable books. And how they are, really fastidious about their reputation in the financial sector. And these guys were busted frauding them. Got taken to court for frauding them. Or not frauding, money laundering. As if I give a fuck about money laundering. But that's beside the point. The point of the matter is that it's obvious that they can't live up to the regulatory demands being placed on them. So, why should we pretend? Why should we pretend with this crap that any kind of additional regulation is going to do us any better? I mean, the regulations that we have in place have yet to save us. They delay the inevitable for a short period of time, but invariably the biggest market players end up being the biggest committers of fraud. So, again, where does the regulation protect us? It protects us from knowing the truth, I can tell you that much. As we saw clearly with Equifax. I don't know if any of you guys were paying attention, but on the Equifax hack, both 1 and 2, the second one we actually knew about when it happened, or not long thereafter, but only because people started paying attention to them after that. After the first hack, where they lost the records of 1 out of 3 Americans. I mean, can you believe that level of incompetence was tolerated a single additional day? And as a matter of fact, I think they had been signed up for continuing on in some government contract or some shit, even after it was disclosed that, or it was found out that it was disclosed, I should say that right, and that they had been hacked, and that they had lost access, or their database had been accessed by unauthorized individuals, and the records of 1 out of 3 Americans were compromised. So, Equifax, the fact of the matter is that because of reporting requirements, they delayed reporting the fraud, the hack after it happened. Now, see, if that shit had been happening in crypto, we would have known within a maximum of 3 days that shit happened. A maximum of 3 days. That's just about how long it takes for the rumor mill to get it across the social network. I mean, look, if we just look back to what we were talking about earlier with the Chinese mining thing. Fuck, I did a goddamn episode on that. It was all over the place. But I did also report that it was questionable because, for all we knew, it was a mistranslation. And that's exactly what they claimed. That it was a mistranslation of a fucking flyer. But you gotta wonder. Just the same, China being in control of that much of the hashing power or being located all in China, it's kind of, that's one of those central point of failures kind of thing. You know, I mean, like if somebody were to get a wild hair and EMP China, that would fuck us, you know, as far as hashing power is concerned. But there again, that's back to that mutually assured destruction thing, because now we're talking about a $200 billion market cap, and it's not as easy to ignore anymore, you know? It's not as easy to say, well, we'll just shut those guys off. We'll just... No, you won't. No, you won't. You want some of that money. You want that money. And, you know, you're looking at people making it, and you're like, how do I get in? Yeah, how do you get in? But that's the spirit that drives us all to Bitcoin at one point or another, is that how do I get in? You know, I talk to people all the time in jiu-jitsu about cryptocurrencies. And I try not to be a proselytizer or anything like that. You know, it's difficult for me, but I do try. And but I invariably end up hearing people say that, you know, how do I get into Bitcoin? Well, you know, gotta start an exchange account and or sell something for Bitcoin. And that's generally the way in. Oh, let's see here. I was looking at one of the tabs I got here in my browser, but I don't know that I want to go down this route. It's not really subject matter I wanted to go through today, and it's a little bit farther away from what we've been talking about this evening, so don't know that I want to do that. I'd rather tie it all in. But let's get back to this thing, though. This is something that I did want to cover, and it's on CryptoVest, CryptoVest.com. Christine Masters was the author. Clearly, in by the picture, no penis. Hacked addresses. Tether theft wallet linked to previous Bitstamp heist. Huh. The public record of the blockchain has made cryptocurrency users aware of a link between earlier Bitstamp heist and the recent withdrawal of USDT from the Tether wallet. Ooh, keenly interesting. Wallet addresses are forever, and while the blockchain does not reveal names, it has an indelible track record. When Speedfly Chris set out to check the recent USDT theft on the Blockchain Explorer, he found links to earlier hacker withdrawals. This address, now emptied of tethers, has received transactions from a wallet that held funds from Bitstamp. Here is the transaction that now the infamous Tethers wallet had received on November 19th, blah, blah, blah. I'm definitely going to retweet this, by the way. Same address, but what is the wallet that sent the funds? It is indeed the same one that stole funds from Bitstamp back in 2015. The latest transaction from this wallet is the one that links it to the stolen tethers along with 5 Bitcoin. And as the wallets involved uses multiple addresses, the complete story of the theft is becoming infinitely more complex. The wallets and addresses involved have also been used on local Bitcoins back in 2015, but no one knows if records are kept that can link an online identity to a Bitcoin wallet. What is known for sure is that address blah 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 belongs to this wallet. And this address and gives another one starting with a 1, by the way. This is a regular one. Belonging to a 1. And on that discernment, I just wanted to indicate the first address that it shows on here is a multi-sig address for I guess for that wallet. And then the next address given is a regular Bitcoin address. And you can tell by the first number on the, or the first digit or whatever on the address. Anyway, continuing on. Belonging to a wallet that has been used to make sales on local Bitcoins. Perhaps this is the most powerful way in which a log of local Bitcoin's activity could link to the hacker's personality. The whole exploration of the wallets and the addresses they have generated can be seen on the original Reddit thread. While the hacker was able to generate multiple addresses from the wallets used, it is not impossible to link those addresses to a handful of wallets and perhaps an identity. The coming weeks will show how the Tether theft unravels. For now, the tokens on the address have been blacklisted, and trading on Bitfinex is business as usual. It is uncertain if the theft would bring light to other problems with Tether, or the rise in Bitcoin's price would be enough to take away the attention from the losses. Interesting. The plot thickens. And let's see here. I'm trying to find some background on this. This is one of the things I've been talking about on this show, is that wallet addresses, while they're pseudonymous, they aren't necessarily fully anonymous. And that is one of the advantages of Verge and one of the disadvantages of it. Is discerning exactly who has what, where, when, why. But I mean, there is enough information, I would think, to at least see a transaction on the blockchain. Now, with regard to this, though, this is all on public blockchains, these wallet addresses and these transactions. And so the traceability, I believe, would be a lot higher. I can guarantee this. If they do enough digging, if they follow it all the way through, what they are going to find, and I have absolutely zero doubt about this, what they are going to find is that either the person involved was a employee of either a government or a legacy finance organization, or like a mercenary or proxy for the same. Almost guarantee it. I mean, if it wasn't, then it was an individual hacker, but I don't think so. I can almost guarantee that they will follow it down, and they will find out, it was a Barclays mercenary or some shit like that, and the person could very well be, somebody known within the space. You never know. It certainly wasn't me, because if I had 5 Bitcoin, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be somewhere else enjoying my $35,000 worth of fucking ill-gotten boodle. Or, I'm sorry, $40,000 worth of ill-gotten boodle. And I would be enjoying my chunk of the USDT, this Tether wallet hack business. But no, I'm in the same place that I was, so you can pretty much discount me for all that business. And you know what? Anybody who's willing to take me to court or some shit, you know what? Call the NSA. I'm sure they've got records. Call the FBI. I'm sure they have records. Call the CIA. I'm sure they have records. And they'll be able to tell you from my digital track record. They'll be able to tell you, to take one look at my fucking dossier and be like, you didn't do it. He's not that sophisticated. Oh, man. But we do see a lot of interesting things going on. And like I said, I would not be surprised at all to find out that, this was IBM employee or mercenary or some shit like that, and or a DEA agent. We've seen their fucking propensity once they figure out what Bitcoin is, how they fucking latch onto it. We saw that with fucking Ross Ulbricht's case. And I got to tell you, with regard to cases, that's one that really bugs me. I mean, because if you look at what Ross actually did, what he was actually responsible for doing, okay, he established probably one of the best models for how an online marketplace should operate. And he did so without any government oversight, without anybody from government instructing him on how to best do this. And I mean, this guy went far as like the whole harm reduction thing and fraud nipping in the bud and that kind of thing. He went very far with that. If there were complaints about a vendor not following through or the quality of the product, he got rid of them. He regulated that shit like he would, what he'd be responsible for doing. But more importantly, I think, is the fact that he had staff that were on hand all the time for people with dealing with substances, whether it was simple questions about the use of substances, whether they should use a substance, for an intended effect or an intended cure or treatment, and a harm based, a harm reduction based perspective on that. And I think, especially now, we're facing all this opioid epidemic and all that other bullshit. I think that is the kind of market that would serve the consumer a lot better. Say you're an up and coming athlete, but you want to push the edge a little bit of your performance. You kind of plateaued out. You're training as hard and as much as you possibly can, but you just want to go that extra bump, right? And so you want to consider maybe getting a testosterone supplement or some other type of other performance enhancing substance. If you had somebody that was well versed in the use of that, available at all times on a market where you could actually acquire such a thing, you could do so intelligently. The guy would be asking you like, okay, well, what's your current hormonal profile? How old are you? What's your body fat percentage? Have you been making any adjustments in your diet or anything like that? What's your mental state? What's your environment like? Is there anything you could be tweaking in your environment to maybe, get your motivation factor up a little bit higher? These are all things that, won't necessarily be to dissuade you from using steroids. But you might find out along the way that you don't really need steroids to get the enhancement that you wanted. But, maybe you tried all of that shit and you say to the guy, dude, I have tried everything. I do chants in the morning. I visualize. I can't do it. I need to bump my T level a little bit or something. That person, if they're well versed in the actual use of it, will be able to provide you with a user level perspective on exactly what would be the best for you. If they had medical training or training in sports medicine on top of that, that would be even better. But the point being is that was the market the market model that Ross made possible, and he's really not given enough credit for it. Honestly, I think we're going to look back on what he provided with the Silk Road in another, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years, and be saying, this is exactly how we should be doing commerce online. And with minor tweaks, we could be getting things like, macrame made in Greece, by somebody who, They didn't bother to go into college or whatever. They just took up macrame and were selling their stuff on the Saturday market. But it's so good that, somebody in Saskatchewan, Canada wants it, and, they find it on the Silk Road or a Silk Road type market. And see, I look at that kind of thing. That's the future to me. Without a bunch of government protections and shit, I just want to look at the review. Does the person follow through on their deliveries? Is the quality of the product, did the purchasers, the previous purchasers of this product find that it was worth the money that they spent on it? That's the kind of thing that I need to know. I don't need to know that it has the CFTC's or SCC's or the FDA's stamp of approval for me to be making my decisions. And it is with that I want to close out this episode. I haven't actually picked a last dance, but we will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I'd certainly like to take a moment and thank you guys for listening. I certainly do enjoy the feedback, especially like the Telegram room and on IRC and whatnot. Also on Twitter, I'm rather prolific on Twitter. If you want to find me and you don't find me in the Telegram room, just hit me up on Twitter. It's usually where I am. Anyway, it's with that I want to go ahead and close out this episode. And, as far as what to play for our last dance, we did hit up Ministry, but I want to go ahead and hit them up again. Let's go. That'll be our last dance. So until Friday, I want y'all to trade safe, do your homework, and watch out for your bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening.